Are you dreaming of traveling the world full-time, but worried about how much it will cost? We've got you covered. In this video series, we'll break down our costs for the years of 2023 and 2024, when we traveled full-time as a family of 5. Well, actually, we had our grandma with us, so we were 6 people most of the time. From accommodations to flights and activities, we share every penny we spend to help you realize that traveling full-time is not only possible, but also affordable. Our adventures ranged from budget-friendly to luxury. And whatever your dream journey might look like, join us and see how your travel dream can come true.
Our journey started in Africa, which is why this video series also starts with our costs. Every penny we spent while traveling through 6 countries in Africa.
Yes, Laila. Africa. Can you remember when we went there the very first time? You were only 9 at the time. It was during the pandemic in 2021, because it was almost the only option where we could travel at all. So I had always wished to take you and the boys to Africa since I studied there like a decade ago, half a decade ago. But Dad had always felt like you guys are too young to go there. He was like, you have to, we should wait until you are all students. But yeah, at some point during the pandemic, we were like, whatever, let's just do it.
Yes, but I'm glad you took us there, because Africa is a dream destination for families with unforgettable experiences, like safaris, gorilla trekking, or just relaxing on some island.
Yeah, like Zanzibar. True, that's true. But how much does it actually cost? Let's break down our spendings when we visited Africa for the second time in 2023.
Alright, let's get started. First of all, our journey began with a brief transit in Qatar, followed by 4 weeks exploring the heart of East Africa. From getting up close to the last great gorillas in Uganda, to taking a walk with giraffes in Kenya, exploring the wonders of the Great Migration in the Serengeti, as well as trekking up Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. Each country brought unique adventures and its own budget surprises.
Exactly. So let's break it down. Qatar was a short but memorable stop. As a luxury hub, even basic expenses can add up quickly. But I had booked flights from Hamburg in Germany via Vienna and Qatar to Entebbe in Uganda, and we were 6 people. You and your 2 brothers, Dad, Grandma, and me. We paid $2,812 and didn't need no visa, which is always nice. Then at the time, I missed the opportunity to let Qatar Airways book accommodation for us, which they usually do when you have a transit stay for a certain amount of hours or even days. Anyways, before I knew about that, I had already booked and paid for 2 hotel rooms, including breakfast, for $105. It wasn't anything fancy, but we were happy to have a pool on the rooftop, which was nice because Qatar is very hot. We paid $41 for a taxi to the hotel and went out for dinner at a local restaurant. The food there was amazing. Can you still remember that? We had a huge platter of food.
Yeah.
And it was way too much for the 6 of us, and we were surprised to at the end only pay $50 for everything. A walk around the streets and along the harbor was free of charge. And the next day we paid $15 for an Uber back to the airport, which made the taxi price from the day prior seem like a ripoff, to be honest. Well, when we add everything up, it comes to $3,023 for the 6 of us. I think due to the fact that the flight price was actually all the way to Entebbe, Uganda, we should probably calculate the daily costs per destination without the flights. What do you think? Makes sense, huh? Alright, then we have a total, without flights, of $207 only, which makes an average of $34.50 per person per day in Qatar.
Uganda was where our African adventure truly began.
status?
We had gotten East Africa visas, which are for Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya, in advance for $100 each. Then Mom had acquired an eSIM for Uganda for about $8. Our biggest splurge here was the 7-day safari, costing $7,608. Accommodation in beautiful lodges, transportation, guides, and basic catering was included as well as the gorilla trekking for Mom and Grandma. The permit for that one was what drove the price up, but the experience of seeing gorillas up close was absolutely priceless, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I would have loved to take part, but I wasn't old enough then.
Yeah, there are some age restrictions, right?
But there was still a lot of other things that I enjoyed in the so-called Pearl of Africa. The boys had fun observing the chimpanzees at the Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center. Emmett explained to Mali what the equator was. We enjoyed the Lake Mburo National Park, Winnie National Park, and then relaxed at Lake Bunyoni, where we also visited a local school. There we donated $50 and probably would have paid more, but didn't really have a lot of cash with us. Then we also paid $504 for tips for guides, security at the gorilla trekking, as well as to restaurant and lodge stuff, where we sometimes also ordered special foods or drinks for another $166.
From Uganda, we drove to Rwanda, which we found to probably be the cleanest African country. Anyways, same guide, same jeep, and same visa. So we didn't have many expenses there. We stayed at a middle-class hotel that was included, but where we got dinner for $53 for the 6 of us. The tour and the walk through Kigali was free of charge. And our most expensive stop was at the Genocide Memorial Center, where we donated $65. With another $5 as tip on the app, we came to an average of $20.50 per person per day in Rwanda. But as I mentioned, most expenses were actually already included in the Uganda costs. So from Kigali, we then hopped on a plane to Nairobi in Kenya, and then a day later to Kilimanjaro Airport in Tanzania. The cost for that was $1,330 for the 6 of us. Laila, do you want to continue with the expenditures in Kenya next?
Sure. As you just mentioned, in Kenya we only stayed for one night and day. We didn't need another visa, so could save some money here. The hotel that you had booked was quite simple and came to $40 for 3 rooms. We spent a good amount on a tour, guide and transportation, $740, but it was fun visiting the Chadwick Wildlife Elephant Orphanage, where they raise baby elephants that have lost their moms and families. Then we also stopped at the Giraffe Center and fed those long necks that also have incredibly long tongues. And we even took a walk with a giraffe at the Nairobi Safari Walk. We splurged on our lunch for $85 and gave a tip of $5. All in all, we spent an unbelievable $145 per person on that one day in Kenya. Could we save some money in our next destination?
Ha! I wish. No, Tanzania, we actually lived like kings and queens because there we went on a luxury safari. But first things first. For Tanzania, we needed a visa, which came to $288 for the 6 of us. I had gotten myself another eSIM for $15 because we had planned to stay for a total of 16 days. We then spent $2,383 on a 3-day tour with transportation, guide, accommodation, and catering. We went to visit the Hadzabe tribe, on safari at the Tarangire National Park. Did we go to Lake Manyara? I'm not even that sure anymore. That was quite an intense experience, so we rewarded ourselves with the ultimate luxury experience. Have you ever heard of TASA? The bucket list family cooperates with them quite regularly, and we had already visited the lodge in 2021 and fell in love with the landscape and the people. It's really the ultimate luxury experience where you can go on morning, midday and evening safaris if you wish so. You can eat dinner under the stars or breakfast among hyenas in the Serengeti. Here, you can also witness the great migration of millions of wildebeest and zebras. You get the best meals and make friends with the outstanding, absolutely kid-friendly staff that are all Maasai from a nearby village, but that have been trained for excellence. Well, as you can imagine, that has its price. We almost paid $9,500 for 4 days, everything included. It's something that we can't afford right now, but if we had the money, would we repeat it?
Definitely.
Another thing, but I'm not sure we would want to repeat that one because it's actually really a once-in-a-lifetime experience, is climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Or what do you think?
I wouldn't do it again.
It took us 7 days to hike up and down the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. But we did it with a great team of happy Kilimanjaro adventure, and then it had its price. $6,451, and we paid another $1,233 in tips for, I can't even recall how many people we had, 15 or 16?
I don't know.
You don't know? It must have been something like this, from cook to porters and guides. So there's a lot of people going with you. Well, that was a really big adventure for sure. After the trip, we went out for dinner and lunch with some of the staff members. The boys took part in an African art class, and we paid another $105 on food. We also had another $337 expenses for additional hotel accommodation. Oh, and did I mention the flights into the Serengeti and back? That was another $2,702. So Tanzania was not cheap at all. Although we didn't even visit Zanzibar this time. We did in 2021, but not in 2023. But we did splurge for sure. We spent $239.73 per person per day in Tanzania. Would you want to do that again?
Yes, but maybe without the Kilimanjaro hiking.
Okay.
But I don't want to go back to Ethiopia again. We didn't feel safe there at all. Youth groups tried to rob us a few times, which was scary. Anyways, the insurance was expensive. We had to pay $380 for a visa for 5 people because Grandma wasn't with us at that time anymore. Because from Tanzania, she had to fly back to Grandpa. Then we paid $70 for a hotel that looked rather low budget but also offered breakfast. Then we had a guide that took us on a half-day city tour through Addis Ababa with a visit to the National Museum because he wanted us to see Lucy, one of the oldest skeletons.
Yeah, one of the oldest skeletons.
We spent $45 on that, which makes it $99 per person for that day. But honestly, even though Ethiopia doesn't seem to be breaking the bank, I'd rather travel to other African countries in the future.
So what did we learn about traveling Africa as a family? First, safaris and trekking can be expensive, but they are worth every penny, aren't they? Yeah, because they are once-in-a-lifetime experiences. Second, food and accommodation costs vary widely by country. Then, lastly, planning ahead saved us money, especially for high-demand activities like gorilla trekking.
Then, should we give some practical tips for others when they're interested to visit Africa?
Good idea. Yeah, why not? So, what would be your number 1 tip?
Book activities early, especially if you want to go on safaris or gorilla trekking permits.
Number 2, if you want a prepared tour, get different offers. The more you know about the destination or what you want to do, the better you might be able to negotiate. And number 3.
Eat in local restaurants rather than international ones. It's more delicious and cheaper.
Yeah, mostly. Number 4. If you really want to cut down on costs, then try to arrange shared safaris maybe with other families or another group.
Number 5. Make sure to get your visas early.
Well said. Well, let me add some notes here. We used an app called MoneyNote to keep track of all our expenses. Whenever we sat down, we typed in the numbers and sometimes even spoke about whether we think the experience was really worth it or not. We did not include health insurance or immunization costs here that we had to cover beforehand. We also didn't include any costs for books or ebooks for homeschooling our kids. But I guess most people would go to Africa more on the vacation anyways, right? We did not include costs for passports or international driver's license or international birth certificates that we usually carry with us when we travel international. We also did not include postal forwarding service that we always use here in Germany when we are gone. And we did not include any costs for clothing or gear that we purchased in advance.
Our African adventure was full of surprises, challenges and unforgettable memories for sure. And if you're planning a trip to Africa, we hope this budget breakdown helps you prepare. Let us know in the comments which country you'd love to visit. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more travel tips from our family.
Next week, we'll go over all our costs in Australia, where we spent 3 months. So if you plan on going there, we hope to see you here next Sunday on our travel journal.
Bye.
Das war doch richtig gut zum Schluss.